What's cracking, guys? Omar Isaf here, back with another video. Back with Dr. Mike Israetel. How you doing?
Great, thanks for having me.
Hey, just quickly before we begin, I understand that actually your dad, who he also is a doctor, different field. What is it? Atmospheric physics?
Correct.
He watches some of the videos here?
He watches all of the videos
here.
Yeah. My dad is a big fan of my YouTube videos, but is a bigger fan of Omar's YouTube videos. And I was just said, Omar is such a brilliant young man, and he's so eloquent and says things in such a great manner, and he's so excited. His nothing but best wishes for you.
A shout out then to Alexander, aka the original Dr. Israetel.
That's right.
In case he sees this, I actually, just a quick anecdote, I kind of totally know what you mean in the sense that my mom, for the stuff I do, not impressed, doesn't care. There was I forget what like professor or someone, like a guest I had, and I mentioned it. It's like, oh, professor, like that's good, like that's good, like that's impressive. You just talking to the camera, like what are you doing? You know, so it's like for your parent, you could never like impress them. It's always the other person.
You bet.
So everyone seemed to really enjoy kind of that looser style when it came to the video. We talked about beginner muscle building mistakes if you want to build more muscle. We also talked a little bit off camera about supplements. Dr. Mike, why don't you give just a quick rundown about yourself, and then we want to talk about the supplement HMB, which had a lot of hype. We want to talk about overrated things, what the dealio is with it.
Dr. Mike Israetel, PhD in sport physiology. My degree taught me how to take good athletes and make them better, or at least try. I was a professor for 4 years, 2 years at Central Missouri, 2 years at Temple University in Philadelphia. I now work full-time for Renaissance Periodization, which is a diet and training company, and our biggest thing is we fund a lot of research, and we write a lot of books that use that research to summarize kind of for everyone of every education level what the deal is, the truth about how to get stronger, how to eat properly, and a part of that is the truth about supplements.
And I think that is such a good service, honestly, for the fitness community. I mean, hey, bro. I'm being serious here. I'm being serious here for a second because you're trying to research more good information and then make it applicable for everyone. And that's kind of the whole topic maybe of today's video, talking potentially about overrated supplements. Can you talk, because you see the average bro that maybe goes to GNC, you see 1,000 different supplements, but something that had a lot of hype recently was that supplement HMB. But I want the real rundown here, the truth behind HMB. What is HMB? Why was it being promoted? Or still, like, when you say if a supplement has, or let's say a pre-workout or anything has HMB, it's a useless ingredient? Like, we could say that now?
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, in science, we don't call it HMB, we call it
Okay.
Yeah.
For those that might not be aware of that.
Yeah, I've actually had somebody in the gym be like, so what do you think about whey protein? And I was like, whey! It's like a slide. It comes with a slide. It's a blow-up slide.
Whey protein.
So HMB, it's funny that you mentioned that it's new hype. I was around for wave one of HMB hype in about 2009, 2010.
Okay.
So the first group of studies came out. And then lately you've had some other studies come out. HMB, beta hydroxymethylbutyrate, it is a downstream metabolite of leucine, which means it's something leucine turns into. And leucine has a lot of promise had a lot of promise as a supplement, because leucine is one of the most anabolically triggering amino acids. So it's triggered all the time. It's triggered when it wakes up. It's triggered when it goes to school. It's just triggered. Right. So it actually triggers anabolism inside the muscle cell if consumed in sufficient quantities. Some of you may have heard this is Leucine Threshold. You know, anything above like 2.5 grams of leucine for the average person. If paired with other amino acids, triggers anabolism. If not paired, it's by no means clear it triggers anything.
Right.
And that's really the big kick. So HMB is kind of like what leucine turns into, and it might be HMB that triggers some of that muscle growth.
Gotcha.
But there's a very big difference between it's a part of the process that triggers muscle growth versus it's a limiting factor in that process. So for example, protein makes you jacked. And if you get 2 grams of protein, per kilo body weight, a gram protein per pound of body weight per day, you will get more and more jacked up until you hit about 1 gram. Right. But after that, protein's no longer a limiting factor. You can eat double that, and it literally won't do anything.
Sure.
Well, Your toilet will look interesting.
We'll get blown out.
Totally. More interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what's that guy's name? Jackson Pollock.
I was thinking the same thing with the different designs.
Yeah. I do really consider myself an artist.
An artist of the toilet bowl.
Other people think so too. I'm at fairs all the time exhibiting my art. So I'm actually going to, what are we, in LA right now? I'm going to be in Laguna Beach doing a display. Live display.
That's why you're really down here.
Avant-garde.
This is just like the side shit.
They were like, hey, do you want to do some fitness shit? I was like, oh, fitness, this is bullshit.
What does it mean to me?
Fine.
Yeah.
Threw out the cigarette.
It doesn't
in the
define
child's
me.
face.
Yeah.
It doesn't really. My art does though. So anyway, what the hell we're talking about? So, taking more protein than you need seems to do pretty much nothing for it. And then in a similar way, the anabolic triggers that are already present in sufficient quantities or need to be present with other factors, if you take them alone or you take them in excess amounts, it seems to do nothing at all. So HMB is in that class, seemingly, of supplements where if you are under eating leucine like crazy, which is actually pretty tough to do, you have to eat very low quality protein sources, you may be able to benefit a little bit by taking leucine and or HMB. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, and to be honest, if you just go about choosing your protein sources very poorly, you maybe have a small marginal benefit. But if you are taking a normal amount of protein, the amount of leucine you're consuming in your diet at that point is massive, and it's sufficient to maximize the muscle response threshold. And once you do that, any amount of HMB taken over that is just literally kind of shitting money away. Now they thought there were a couple of products. How do they come to this sort of stuff? Well, there's
So like, why were there, Dr. Mike, like studies in the first place that showed promise?
Totally.
Yeah, in that
there
first way.
were some rodent studies.
Okay.
That showed HMB was kind of cool, but we have to be really careful about rodent studies. There's a lot of stuff that looks good in rodents sometimes doesn't pan out for humans because there are some notable physiological differences. Now, some people might think I've misspoken. Some notable.
A few?
Right.
What?
But what it turns out, like rodents have something like 90% of the DNA that we do.
Yeah.
It's a huge, and their basic physiology of muscle growth and gain is very, very similar. But there are differences, and some of them are, the pathways work in a similar way, but there's one pathway that it quite doesn't, and then it cuts off the whole process.
Okay.
So another supplement we could talk about in another video, perhaps, not very popular currently, called Conjugated Linoleic Acid, CLA.
Okay, CLA, yeah.
CLA was like a magic drug in rodents. I mean, it was like, holy crap, like it would burn a bunch of fat off and build a bunch of muscle. And they gave it to humans, and just literally dick happened.
Yeah.
They were like, and now.
Yeah.
And
Anytime
where's
you
the
want
body
it,
fat?
anytime you
Okay,
want it,
still here. So HMB, has some promise in some kind of mechanistic studies, rodent studies, and then they started giving it to people, and it was kind of like a 50-50 thing where sometimes shit would happen that was cool, and sometimes it wouldn't. But all these results are like when HMB had its negative results, they were just mildly negative.
Right.
When it had its positive results in studies, of which there were a few, there was just tiny little positive. I think the real big hype behind HMB happened with Wilson studies that occurred last couple of years. The results for HMB were like on the order of magnitude of results to high quantities of anabolic steroids.
Yeah, and that's what threw people off. I'll break down that study very quickly, where you said the results of those taking HMB were basically on par, or actually more than those taking anabolic steroids.
I don't have it off memory, but it was something like the individuals who were taking HMB versus controls who were not gained something like 14 pounds of muscle in the order of like 12 or 14 weeks.
Sure.
Which is, like comical at best.
Yeah. Almost impossible.
Yeah, like you'd have to run an irresponsible amount of gear to do that.
Right. Yeah.
So neighbors would be worried about you.
HMB costs $20 a supplement. Meanwhile, like you need thousands of dollars worth of gear or whatever.
Sure. For sure. Or, and if it didn't cost that much money, it would cost you a lot more in health.
Right.
So it was one of these things where it just looked, I'll put it this way, if one laboratory, one author gets a result that is wild, it is very irresponsible from a person's perspective who is scientifically educated to be like, oh my God.
Right.
The first thing scientists ask, as soon as an astronomical result is achieved by one laboratory and one publisher, one researcher, or their team, the first question that's always asked is, who's going to replicate it?
Right.
Now, if it gets replicated in another laboratory, it's unassociated. Now we're on to something.
Right.
That is replication is one of the central foundations of science. So, for those folks, never mind HMB. For any supplements you look at, if there's one or two good studies on it, that's never enough. You have to make sure. Creatine has been studied around the world. And everybody finds it does some good stuff.
Yeah.
It's not crazy good stuff though, so it's believable too. Right. Anabolic steroids have been studied around the world. They do magical things, but they destroy your health. So it kind of makes sense, right? It's a give and take. So anytime, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. That doesn't mean it definitely is. Like some stuff really is cool, and I'm sure there will be future supplements and drugs that'll just be amazing.
Right.
But HMB ain't it, because all the other studies say it just basically here's how the research went. For like 10 years, it was like
Yeah.
Right? And that last part, I just wouldn't get too excited about that part.
Because it's the outlier. They haven't been able, as of yet, right, to replicate that study.
No.
So it's a complete outlier, and considering that most people, we can make a few assumptions about those watching this video, that they probably do get adequate sources of protein. They probably
better be.
Yeah, and they probably are getting it from what do you say, quality sources. So they're getting enough leucine.
Totally.
So if we assume that, then we can say probably that HMB is useless for the average viewer out there.
You know, useless is a great way to describe it. I would say of incredibly marginal utility if I was being very technical specific.
As positive as possible.
Yeah, sure. If you want all the conceivable advantages, sure, take HMB. But I'll put it to you this way: almost under no rubric, plan of action, is it worth the money.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if it cost a cent per pill, maybe. but it doesn't.
It's so marginal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you explained it perfectly. It's always fascinating to go into supplements. You've been around the industry now for a while, so you see kind of the cycle almost, as you said, where like maybe one outlandish, or there'll be some research, it's whatever, and then one study or something comes out and people all of a sudden hop on this bandwagon where they're trying to find the new thing, because you find the new thing, you can market it, you could hype it up, talk about it, and ultimately sell it.
That's a big deal, and it's a bigger deal than anything we can cover in this video adequately, but I will say this. The idea of hype itself is antithetical to the scientific mind frame.
Sure.
When, one of my favorite intellectuals, an economist named Thomas Sowell, when someone would debate him and tell him some kind of fact that was supposed to just baffle him, his response was never, oh. His response was, because he'd heard it so many times, these amazing facts that just washed away after most of the other evidence was gathered.
Sure.
So anytime I would just advise, or give you an option as the viewer here, that anytime you see new studies that are just totally revolutionary, I would put on my Thomas Sowell hat and go, Now that doesn't mean that it's definitely not. Because he wasn't like, no, this is bullshit. He was like, means let's see some more.
Let's just wait.
Because I tell you what, if you jumped on every single study bandwagon over the last 10 years, you would just be hopping from one bandwagon to another, and you would have 9 out of 10 of them would have gone nowhere.
Would be absolutely useless.
You don't want to be that person.
And that's basically what happens with the supplement industry, though. You see like the new thing, the 3-4 years. Maybe we'll get to CLA. I will say, in summary, this has been the conversation on HMB, whether it's worth it or not. The ultimate choice, once again, lies with you, but it seems pretty damn clear that as long as all the basics are taken care of, that you'll find no utility with it. Post below what you guys want to see next when it comes to talking of supplements, breaking things down, maybe hype or new things are on the way that you just want more information on. I got to give a huge shout out to Dr. Mike. Where can people find you? Where can people, because you're just a wealth of knowledge, you're funding also, you said, this research. I'm going to link it in the description. Just tell us a little bit.
I've been dealing with a lot of personal issues lately, and I don't want to be found anymore.
Oh, you don't want to be found? You found yourself, but you just don't want to be found.
I'm on a journey to find myself,
okay.
So I'm taking myself off all social.
Wow. Well, can I tell you something? I purposely lost myself so that I could find myself again.
So it worked for you.
It's a never-ending journey. Yeah, there's no solution.
Yeah. In the meantime,
you can find
at RP Dr. Mike on Instagram,
right.
at RP Strength on Instagram. It's the company I work for, and Mike Isertel on Facebook.
Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked the video, make sure to like the damn video, and I'll see all you guys, my rascals, in that next one. Peace.